The morning sun cast long shadows across the surface of Kepler 442b as Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus. The human colony below looked peaceful from orbit. Farms stretched across green valleys, and small cities dotted the landscape. It had taken humanity 20 years to build this world into something that could support 500,000 people. Chen was a tall woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. She wore the simple blue uniform of the Colonial Defense Force. Her ship, the Prometheus, looked nothing like the sleek vessels she had commanded in the old Earth Wars. It was a big square block of metal and ceramic plates. Most people would mistake it for a cargo hauler. That was exactly what Chen wanted them to think. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Lieutenant Martinez sat at the sensor station, watching the screens that showed empty space around their solar system. Ensign Park monitored communications from the colony below. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief scientist, checked readings on a device that looked like an ordinary computer terminal, but was much more important than anyone could guess. "Captain," Martinez said suddenly, "I'm getting readings on the long-range sensors. Multiple contacts jumping into the outer system." Chen moved to his station and looked at the display. 12 large shapes had appeared near the edge of the solar system. They were moving fast toward the inner planets where the human colony sat. "Size estimates?" Chen asked. "Each one is about 3 times our length. They're not broadcasting any identification signals." Chen nodded. She had been expecting this day for years. Humanity had been alone in space for so long that they had started to think they might be the only intelligent species in the galaxy. 3 months ago, that changed. When the first alien contact probe reached Earth, the message had been simple and direct. Other species ruled this part of space. Humans would need permission to stay on their colony world. The permission had been denied. "Sir," Park called out, "the alien ships are sending a message. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." "Put it on screen," Chen ordered. The main display flickered and showed the face of an alien creature. It had dark purple skin and 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its large head. Sharp teeth filled its mouth when it spoke. The voice came through the translation software in flat, emotionless words. "I am Admiral Zektar of the Vorthak hegemony. This system now belongs to us. The primitive species calling itself human will remove all settlements and ships within 1 standard day. Any who remain will be destroyed." The alien's 4 eyes seemed to focus directly on the camera. "We have claimed 17 worlds from lesser species. Your resistance will be brief and pointless. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. "Well," Dr. Vasquez said quietly, "he seems friendly." Chen almost smiled. Elena had been with her for 8 years, through the Mars Rebellion and the Belt Wars. The scientist never lost her sense of humor, even when facing impossible odds. "Martinez, what can you tell me about their ships?" Chen asked. The lieutenant studied his instruments. "They're unlike anything in our databases. The hulls appear to be some kind of organic material. I'm reading massive energy signatures from what look like weapon systems. Each ship has multiple plasma cannon arrays and some kind of energy shielding." "How long until they reach us?" "At their current speed, about 6 hours." Chen walked to the center of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12 alien warships were coming to destroy everything humanity had built in this system. The aliens thought it would be easy. They had probably fought other species who used energy weapons and particle shields. They expected a normal space battle with normal space weapons. They were about to learn that humans did not fight normal battles. "Dr. Vasquez," Chen said. "Status of the package?" Elena checked her readings. "All systems are green. The delivery system is fully charged and ready for deployment. Target calculations are updated and locked in." "Good. Park, send a message to Colony Control. Tell them to begin evacuation procedures immediately. Use Code 7 protocols." Park's hands moved quickly over his console. Code 7 meant total evacuation. Every person on the planet needed to get into the underground shelters or onto transport ships within the next few hours. "Message sent, Captain. Colony Control acknowledges Code 7 evacuation." Chen hoped they would move fast enough. What was about to happen would be visible from the planet's surface. She wanted as few people as possible to see it. "Sir," Martinez called out. "The alien fleet is changing formation. They're spreading out into attack positions." Chen studied the tactical display. The Vorthak ships had formed a line with their largest vessel in the center. It was a classic attack formation used by species who relied on energy weapons and shields. They would focus their fire on the human ship until its defenses failed, then finish it with concentrated plasma bursts. "They're scanning us," Martinez reported. "Multiple sensor sweeps across our hull." Chen could imagine what those scans were showing the aliens. The Prometheus had thick armor made of simple steel and ceramic composites. No energy shields, no visible weapon arrays. The power readings would show normal fusion reactors, nothing exotic or threatening. To any advanced species, it would look like a cargo ship with some extra armor plates welded on. "Perfect." "Captain," Park said, "we're receiving another transmission from the lead alien ship. On screen." Admiral Zektar appeared again, but this time his 4 eyes showed what might have been amusement. "We have examined your vessel, humans. You send a cargo hauler against the mightiest fleet in this sector of space. Your technology is centuries behind ours. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution." The alien leaned forward, and his sharp teeth gleamed in the light. "Perhaps we will keep some of your kind alive for study. Your foolish bravery is interesting." The transmission ended. "Charming fellow," Dr. Vasquez muttered. Chen looked around her bridge at the crew who had followed her through 3 different wars. They were calm and professional, but she could see the tension in their faces. They knew what was coming. They also knew their chances of survival were very small. "Listen carefully," Chen said. "In about 5 hours, we're going to fire 1 shot. After that, this war will either be over or we'll all be dead. Either way, we're going to send these aliens a message they'll never forget." She paused and looked each crew member in the eye. "For the last 30 years, humanity has been preparing for this day. We knew that someday we would meet a species that thought we were weak. Today we teach them the difference between looking weak and being weak." Martinez straightened in his chair. "Orders, Captain?" "Begin final preparations. Dr. Vasquez, start the charging sequence. Martinez, plot our intercept course. Park, send one final message to the alien fleet. Tell them we decline their generous offer." As her crew worked, Chen stared out at the approaching enemy ships. Admiral Zektar had said this would be an execution. He was right about that. He was just wrong about who was going to die. The Prometheus began to turn, aligning itself with the center of the alien formation. To the Vorthak, it would look like a desperate suicide run. Chen hoped they would keep thinking that, right up until the moment everything changed. The war for humanity's future was about to begin with a single shot that would echo across the galaxy. The bridge of the Prometheus had become a place of quiet focus. Captain Chen moved between stations, checking readouts and speaking softly with her officers. Outside, the Vorthak fleet continued its approach, but there was still time before the shooting would start. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked at her station with steady hands. The device in front of her looked simple enough, just screens showing numbers and graphs. But those numbers represented 30 years of human scientific achievement. The package was humanity's answer to a universe that seemed designed to crush them. "Charging sequences at 40%, she reported. "All magnetic containment fields are stable. The targeting computer is running final calculations." Chen nodded. "How long for full charge?" 3 hours and 20 minutes. "The timing will be perfect." At the weapons station, Chief Petty Officer Kim ran through his checklist for the 3rd time. Kim was a short, quiet man who had served on human warships for 15 years. He had fired every weapon in the Colonial Defense Force arsenal. Rail, guns, missile systems, plasma cannons captured from pirates. But he had never fired anything like the package. "All firing systems check out," Kim reported. "The magnetic accelerator is aligned and ready. Power coupling is secure." Chen looked at the tactical display. The Vorthak ships were still 4 hours away, but their formation had tightened. Admiral Zektar was clearly not taking any chances, even against what he thought was a helpless cargo ship. Martinez, what can you tell me about their weapons? Lieutenant Martinez studied his sensor readings. Each ship carries at least 20 plasma cannon arrays. The energy output readings are incredible. They also have some kind of particle beam weapons that I've never seen before. And those shields, Captain, our conventional weapons wouldn't even scratch them. Good thing we don't use conventional weapons, Chen said quietly. On the planet below, the evacuation was proceeding smoothly. Transport ships lifted off from the main spaceport every few minutes, carrying civilians to the underground shelters in the northern mountains. The shelters had been built to protect against asteroid impacts, but they would also keep people safe from what was about to happen in orbit. Chen opened a communication channel to colony control. This is Prometheus. What's your evacuation status? The voice of Director Walsh came through clearly. Captain, we've moved 80% of the population to the shelters. The remaining 20% will be secure within 2 hours. Understood. Make sure everyone stays underground for at least 6 hours after we engage the enemy. Copy that. Chen, good hunting. The channel closed. Walsh had been a military officer before becoming colony director. He knew what Chen and her crew were about to attempt. He also knew their chances. Back on the bridge, Ensign Park was monitoring communications from the Vorthak fleet. The aliens were not trying to hide their transmissions. Chen suspected they wanted humanity to hear their confidence. What are they saying? Chen asked. Park looked uncomfortable. They're discussing how to divide up our colony, sir. Admiral Zektar wants to keep the main continent for a military base. The other commanders are arguing about mining rights. That sure they'll win? It gets worse. They're debating whether to kill all the humans or keep some as slaves for the mining operations. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her station. Charming. I'm starting to look forward to showing them our package. Chen walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Admiral Zektar was probably sitting in his command chair, confident that he was about to add another easy victory to his record. The Vorthak had conquered 17 other species. They had probably used the same tactics, each time. Overwhelming firepower, superior technology, and the arrogance that came from never losing. Today, that arrogance would kill them. Captain, Martinez called out, I'm picking up more transmissions from the alien fleet. They're broadcasting on multiple channels. What kind of transmissions? It looks like they're recording this battle for other species to see. Admiral Zektar is sending video messages to Vorthak colonies throughout this sector. Chen was not surprised. The aliens wanted to use humanity's destruction as a warning to other species. Show them what happened to civilizations that resisted the Vorthak hegemony. Let them record, Chen said. We'll give them something worth watching. The next 2 hours passed slowly. The crew ran through their procedures again and again. The package charging sequence continued without problems. The Vorthak fleet drew closer and their energy signatures grew stronger on the sensors. Chen found herself thinking about the first time she had heard about the package project. It was 8 years ago, shortly after the Mars Rebellion ended. The Colonial Defense Force had been looking for new weapons to protect humanity's growing presence in space. Traditional weapons were expensive and required large ships to carry them effectively. Dr. Vasquez had proposed something different. Instead of building bigger guns or more powerful missiles, why not use physics itself as a weapon? A small projectile moving fast enough would carry more destructive power than any explosive ever made by humans. The concept was simple. The execution had taken 3 decades. Charging sequence at 75%, Dr. Vasquez reported. All systems remain stable. Chen looked at the chronometer on her command chair. The Vorthak fleet would be in weapons range in 90 minutes. The aliens had already demonstrated their plasma cannons by firing test shots into empty space. The energy beams had been visible from thousands of kilometers away. Park, have the aliens sent any more demands for surrender? Chen asked. No, sir. Admiral Zektar seems to think his first message was sufficient. Chen was actually grateful for the alien commander's arrogance. Some species might have tried negotiation or offered terms. The Vorthak's absolute certainty that they would win made this easier. Chief Kim looked up from his weapons console. Captain, I've been thinking about the recoil from firing the package. Are we sure the ship can handle it? Dr. Vasquez answered, before Chen could speak. The magnetic accelerator will absorb most of the energy. The ship's structure can handle what's left. Probably. Probably? Kim asked. We'll find out, Chen said. Either the ship survives, or the recoil tears us apart. But if the package works, it won't matter. There won't be any enemy ships left to shoot us. The bridge fell quiet again. Everyone understood the situation. They would fire one shot. If it worked, they would win the battle instantly. If it failed, 12 alien warships would turn the Prometheus into scrap metal in seconds. Charging sequence at 90%, Dr. Vasquez announced. Beginning final alignment procedures. Chen activated the ship's intercom system. All hands, this is the captain. We will engage the enemy in approximately 1 hour. Remember your training and trust your equipment. Today, we defend not just our colony, but the future of human expansion into space. Every species in the galaxy will learn what happens when they threaten humanity. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. It has been an honor serving with all of you. The intercom clicked off. Outside, the Vorthak fleet continued its approach, completely unaware that they were flying into a trap 30 years in the making. Admiral Zektar stood in the command center of his flagship, the World Breaker. Around him, dozens of Vorthak officers worked at stations that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The ship itself was alive, grown rather than built, and it responded to his thoughts through neural implants behind his 4 eyes. The human ship appeared on the main display as a small, pathetic rectangle of metal. Zektar's tactical officers had completed their scans hours ago. No energy shields, primitive fusion reactors, armor that looked like it belonged on an industrial transport vessel. The humans had sent their weakest ship to face the hegemony's most powerful fleet. Commander Thus, Zektar called to his second-in-command. Begin recording. I want every species in this sector to see what happens to those who resist us. This activated the communication array. Recording on all channels. Admiral, the message will reach 12 star systems within the hour. Zektar nodded with satisfaction. The destruction of this human colony would serve as a warning to other primitive species. Submit to the hegemony or face total annihilation. It was a simple message that had worked 17 times before. Sir, the weapons officer reported, all plasma batteries are charged and ready. The particle beam array is online. Should I target their engines first? Zektar considered the question. Standard procedure was to disable enemy vessels and force their surrender, but these humans had been particularly stubborn in their refusal to submit. Perhaps a demonstration of power would be more effective. Target their weapon systems, he ordered. I want them helpless but alive. They need to watch their colony burn before we finish them. The bridge crew prepared for combat with practiced efficiency. The Vorthak had been conquering other species for over 2 centuries. Their tactics were refined through countless victories. Overwhelming firepower, superior technology, and the complete certainty that no primitive species could stand against them. On the tactical display, the human ship was moving into what appeared to be an attack position. Zektar found this amusing. The vessel was orienting itself to face his fleet directly, as if it planned to charge straight into their formation. Admiral, Theiss said, the human ship is positioning itself for a frontal assault. Should we adjust our formation? Zektar's 4 eyes glittered with amusement. No, let them come. I want to see what these humans think they can accomplish with their cargo hauler. The range closed steadily. In 30 minutes, the human ship would be within optimal weapons range. Zektar could have opened fire already, but he wanted to be close enough to see the expression on the human captain's face when their pathetic vessel was torn apart. Sir, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through. The display showed a human female in a simple blue uniform. She had gray hair and calm eyes that reminded Zektar of a predator, waiting to strike. The comparison bothered him for reasons he couldn't explain. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Colonial Defense Force ship Prometheus, the human said. Admiral Zektar, I'm offering you one final chance to withdraw from this system peacefully. Zektar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You offer me terms? You command a single cargo ship against 12 dreadnoughts. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your armor cannot withstand our plasma cannons. What exactly do you think you can accomplish? The human captain's expression never changed. I'm giving you the chance to leave with your lives. That's more consideration than you've shown to the 17 species you've conquered. 17 species who learned the price of defying the hegemony, Zektar replied. Today humanity will join that list. Your bravery is admirable, Captain Chen, but bravery cannot overcome impossible odds. We'll see, Chen said simply, and ended the transmission. Zektar stared at the blank screen for a moment. There had been something in the human's voice that he didn't like. Not fear or desperation, but confidence. What could a primitive species possibly know that gave them such certainty? Admiral, the tactical officer called out. The human ship has reached optimal firing range. Should we begin the attack? Zektar looked at the tactical display one more time. The human vessel was positioned perfectly in the center of his formation's firing arc. Every ship in his fleet could target it simultaneously. There would be nowhere for it to run. All ships, open fire. Target their weapons and engines. I want them crippled, not destroyed. The space around the Worldbreaker erupted in brilliant light as 12 Vorthak dreadnoughts fired their plasma cannons. Streams of superheated energy lanced across the void toward the human ship. The beams were bright enough to be seen from the planet's surface, magnificent displays of the hegemony's technological superiority. The plasma bolt struck the Prometheus across its hull. Explosions bloomed along the ship's armor as the energy weapons found their target. Zektar watched with satisfaction as sections of the human vessel's outer plating were blown away. But the ship didn't stop moving. It didn't break apart or lose power. The damage looked severe, but the vessel continued on its course as if the attack had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Report, Zektar demanded. The weapons officer studied his readings with confusion. Sir, our plasma cannons achieved direct hits across the target's hull, but the damage appears to be superficial. Their armor is absorbing most of the energy. Impossible. Our weapons can punch through any known armor material. The humans appear to be using some kind of kinetic armor system, sir. It's designed to absorb energy weapons rather than deflect them. I've never seen anything like it. Zektar felt the first hint of unease. His plasma cannons should have crippled the human ship instantly. Instead, they had barely scratched its surface. What kind of primitive species designed armor specifically to counter energy weapons? Sir, the communications officer announced, the human ship is transmitting again. Captain Chen appeared on the screen once more. Her ship had just been hit by enough firepower to level a city, but she looked completely calm. Admiral Zektar, she said, thank you for the demonstration. Our armor performed exactly as designed. Now let me show you what human weapons can accomplish. The transmission ended and Zektar realized that the human ship had moved into a very specific position. It was now directly in the center of his fleet formation, with all 12 Vorthak dreadnoughts surrounding it in a perfect circle. Sir, the tactical officer called out urgently. The human ship is powering up some kind of weapon system. I'm reading massive energy buildup in their forward section. Zektar looked at the display and felt a chill run through his body. The human ship wasn't trying to escape or maneuver for a better position. It had deliberately placed itself in the center of his formation for a reason. All ships, maximum power to shields, he ordered. Prepare for... He never finished the command. Captain Chen had just taught the Vorthak hegemony that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that looks helpless. The space around the Prometheus began to change in ways that defied everything Zektar thought he knew about warfare. The humans were about to demonstrate that 30 years of preparation could overcome centuries of conquest in a single devastating moment. Admiral Zektar's reign of terror was about to end with one shot that would rewrite the rules of galactic warfare forever. Captain Chen stood at the center of her bridge, watching the tactical display that showed 12 alien warships surrounding her vessel. The Vorthak plasma cannons had scarred the Prometheus's hull, but the damage was exactly what she had expected. Human armor wasn't designed to look impressive. It was designed to work. Dr. Vasquez, final status report, Chen ordered. Elena looked up from her station with a slight smile. All systems are green, Captain. The package is fully charged and ready. For deployment, target solutions are locked and confirmed. The magnetic accelerator is aligned and waiting for your command. Chief Kim checked his weapons console one last time. Firing sequence is armed and ready, sir. All safety protocols have been satisfied. Chen looked around her bridge at the crew who had followed her through 3 wars and countless battles. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they probably wouldn't survive it. But they also knew that their sacrifice would save millions of human lives and send a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Martinez, confirm me. Our position relative to the enemy fleet. We are at the exact center of their formation, Captain. All 12 ships are positioned in a perfect circle around us, range 4,000 kilometers. They have us completely surrounded. Chen nodded. The Vorthak had done exactly what she had hoped they would do. Their standard battle formation placed the enemy vessel at the center of their firepower, allowing all ships to concentrate their weapons on a single target. It was an effective tactic against conventional opponents. Against the package, it was a death sentence. Admiral Zektar is hailing us again, Ensign Park reported. Put him through. The alien commander appeared on the main screen, his 4 yellow eyes blazing with anger and confusion. Captain Chen, your armor may have protected you from our first volley, but you cannot survive a concentrated bombardment. Surrender now, and I will grant you a quick death. Chen looked directly into the alien's eyes. Admiral, 30 years ago, humanity's best scientists began working on a single question. How do you destroy an enemy that has superior technology, better weapons and more ships than you do? Zektar's expression shifted slightly. What are you talking about? The answer, Chen continued, is that you don't try to outfight them. You don't try to outbuild them. Instead, you find the one advantage they can't match and you use it to level the playing field. The alien admiral leaned forward in his command chair. What advantage could your primitive species possibly have over the hegemony? Chen smiled coldly. Patience. Humanity spent 30 years building the weapon that's about to end your empire. We called it the package, and it's the reason my ship looks like a cargo hauler, because that's exactly what it is. A cargo hauler designed to deliver one very special piece of freight. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Dr. Vasquez made final adjustments to her controls. The device that everyone called the package was actually a tungsten projectile no larger than a baseball. It had been accelerated over the past 3 months using a combination of gravitational slingshots around stars and antimatter drives that had pushed it to 99.7% of the speed of light. The projectile had been waiting in the outer system when the Vorthak fleet arrived. The Prometheus had simply maneuvered to catch it and guide it toward its target. You see, Admiral, Chen continued, your species thinks in terms of energy weapons and particle shields. You build bigger guns and stronger armor. But we think in terms of physics. And physics says that a small object moving fast enough becomes the most powerful weapon in the universe. Zektar's 4 eyes widened as understanding began to dawn on him. What have you done? We've turned your own tactics against you. You surrounded us because you wanted to destroy us with concentrated firepower. But you've also positioned your entire fleet in the perfect formation for a single devastating strike. Chen turned to her weapons officer. Chief Kim, you may fire, when ready. Kim's hand moved to the firing control. Package away, Captain. To anyone watching from outside, nothing seemed to happen. There was no flash of light, no energy beam, no visible projectile. The Prometheus simply seemed to shudder slightly as magnetic accelerators deep in its hull guided the package toward its target. For exactly 0.7 seconds, space around the Vorthak fleet remained unchanged. The package was traveling so fast that even light struggled to keep up with it. The tungsten projectile crossed the 4,000 kilometers to the world breaker in less time than it took a human heart to beat. When the package struck Admiral Zektar's flagship, the laws of physics took over. The impact released energy equivalent to several nuclear weapons but concentrated into a space smaller than a pinhead. The World Breaker, a massive bioorganic vessel that had conquered 17 star systems, simply ceased to exist. The front half of the ship was vaporized instantly. The back half had enough time to begin breaking apart before the expanding plasma cloud consumed it. But the destruction was only beginning. The package's impact created a brief artificial star in the void. The temperature at the center of the explosion reached 50 million degrees. The shockwave expanded outward at a significant fraction of light speed, carrying with it debris from the flagship and enough energy to melt planets. The other 11 Fourth-Act dreadnoughts had no time to react. Their energy shields, designed to deflect plasma bolts and particle beams, were useless against the kinetic energy wave that struck them. The nearest ships were torn apart by debris traveling at relativistic speeds. The furthest vessels were caught in the expanding sphere of superheated plasma and simply evaporated. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds from the moment Chief Kim pressed the firing button to the moment the last Vorthak ship stopped existing. When the energy signatures finally faded, Captain Chen looked at her tactical display and saw only empty space where 12 alien warships had been threatening her colony. The most powerful fleet in the Vorthak hegemony had been reduced to a cloud of hot gas and scattered atoms. My God, Dr. Vasquez whispered, staring at her instruments. The energy release was even higher than our calculations predicted. Lieutenant Martinez checked his sensors 3 times before speaking. Captain, I'm reading no intact vessels in the area, no life signs, no debris larger than a few meters across. Chen nodded slowly. The package had worked exactly as designed. 30 years of human scientific achievement had been concentrated into a single shot that rewrote the rules of galactic warfare. Park, open a channel to colony control, she ordered. Channel open, Captain. Colony control, this is Prometheus. The threat has been eliminated. You may begin returning civilians to the surface. Director Walsh's voice came through with obvious relief. Captain, our telescope saw the explosion. Please tell me that was the alien fleet and not you. The alien fleet no longer exists, Chen reported. The Prometheus is intact and ready to defend the colony against any future threats. She paused and looked around her bridge at the crew who had just made history. Colony Control, please prepare a full report of this engagement for transmission to Earth. I think the Colonial Defense Force will want to know that the package program was a complete success. The bridge of the Prometheus fell silent, except for the soft hum of computers and life support systems. Outside, space was peaceful again, but word of what had happened here would soon spread across the galaxy, carrying a simple message to every species that thought humanity was weak. They had been wrong, catastrophically, fatally wrong. 3 hours after the battle ended, Captain Chen stood in her ready room staring out at the debris field that had once been the most feared fleet in this sector of space. The explosion had been visible from the planet's surface as a brief new star that outshone the system's sun for exactly 12 seconds. Now, only scattered particles of metal and organic matter remained to mark the passing of Admiral Zektar and his 12 dreadnoughts. The door chimed, and Dr. Vasquez entered carrying a datapad and 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Chen and sat down across from her captain's desk. The final analysis is complete, Elena said. The package performed exactly within predicted parameters. The kinetic energy release was equivalent to 43 nuclear warheads detonated simultaneously. The blast radius extended to 15,000 kilometers. No vessel within that range could have survived. Chen sipped her coffee and thought about the implications. What about our own ship? How did we survive being so close to the explosion? The Prometheus was positioned just outside the lethal radius, and our armor was specifically designed to handle the electromagnetic pulse and radiation burst. We took some damage to our outer hull plating, but all critical systems remained operational. And the package delivery system? Elena smiled grimly. Completely destroyed as expected. The magnetic accelerators were vaporized by the energy release. It will take 6 months to rebuild them, assuming we can get the components from Earth. Chen nodded. Each package weapon could only be used once. The delivery system had to be rebuilt after every shot, and each tungsten projectile took years to accelerate to combat velocity. It was not a weapon for prolonged conflicts. But for sending a message to the galaxy about humanity's capabilities, one shot had been more than enough. Captain, Ensign Park's voice came through the intercom. We're receiving multiple communications from various sources. Some of them are interesting. Chen and Dr. Vasquez returned to the bridge, where Park had organized the incoming messages by priority and origin. The communications board showed transmissions from dozens of different star systems. "What do we have?" Chen asked. Park looked at his screen with barely concealed excitement. "Sir, word of the battle has spread faster than we expected. The Vorthak were broadcasting their attack on multiple channels, remember? Alien species across 12 star systems watched Admiral Zektar's fleet get destroyed in real time. Show me the most important messages first." The main screen displayed a series of alien faces, each more unusual than the last. The first was the insectoid creature with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked when it spoke. "Greetings, humans of the vessel Prometheus. I am Hive Speaker Zach of the Chitinous Collective. We have observed your victory over the Vorthak oppressors. Our species was the 14th to fall to their fleet. We wish to discuss alliance possibilities and mutual defense agreements." The next message came from a being that looked like a walking tree with silver bark and leaves that shimmered with their own light. "Captain Chen, I am Grovemind Silverleaf of the Botanical Congress. The Vorthak destroyed 3 of our colony worlds last year. We offer our worlds as refueling stations for human ships in exchange for protection from future hegemony attacks." Chen watched message after message from species that had been conquered, threatened, or intimidated by the Vorthak. Hegemony. The destruction of Admiral Zektar's fleet had done more than eliminate a military threat. It had shattered the myth of Vorthak invincibility that had kept dozens of species in fearful submission. "Any messages from hostile species?" Chen asked. Park nodded grimly. "Several, Captain. Most are demanding explanations of our weapons technology. A few are making threats if we don't share the package design with them." "And our response?" "I've been sending them the same message you approved. Humanity seeks peace with all species. We also prepare for war with equal dedication. Choose wisely which you prefer." Dr. Vasquez looked at the communications display with interest. "It's remarkable how quickly this has spread. The news of our victory will reach every inhabited system in this part of the galaxy within a few weeks." Chen thought about the implications. For 30 years, humanity had been preparing for the day when they would encounter a hostile alien species. They had built their weapons, trained their crews, and developed their tactics in secret. Now, the secret was out. Every species in the galaxy would know that humans possessed weapons capable of destroying entire fleets with a single shot. Some species would want to become allies. Others would want to acquire human technology. A few would probably decide that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. "Captain," Martinez called from his station, "I'm detecting new contacts on the edge of the system. 3 ships, unknown configuration, approaching at high speed." Chen moved to the tactical display. 3 sleek vessels had just entered the outer system and were heading directly toward the colony world. They were smaller than the Vorthak dreadnoughts, but moved with the fluid grace of advanced technology. "Are they broadcasting any identification signals?" "Yes, sir. They identify themselves as representatives of the Galactic Trade Consortium. They're requesting permission to approach and open diplomatic communications." Chen had heard of the Trade Consortium. They were one of the most powerful organizations in known space, controlling commerce between hundreds of different species. If they were sending representatives to humanity, it meant the news of the package had reached the highest levels of galactic civilization. "Grant them permission to approach, but keep our defensive systems ready." "Dr. Vasquez, how long would it take to prepare another package?" Elena consulted her datapad. "With our current resources, impossible. We would need to return to Earth and use the Luna shipyards to rebuild the delivery system, and we don't have any more tungsten projectiles accelerated to combat velocity. So, we're down to conventional weapons if these new visitors turn hostile." "I'm afraid so, but Captain, I don't think they're here to fight. The Trade Consortium doesn't survive by making enemies of species that can destroy fleets. They survive by making profitable deals." 2 hours later, Chen sat in the main conference room of the Prometheus, across from 3 alien diplomats. The lead representative was a tall, elegant being with pale blue skin and large, intelligent eyes. It introduced itself as Trade Minister Veltar of the Consortium Economic Council. Captain Chen, the minister said in perfect English, "We have observed your recent demonstration of military capability. The Galactic Trade Consortium is very interested in establishing formal relations with humanity." "What kind of relations?" Chen asked carefully. "Mutual benefit agreements. Your species clearly possesses advanced weapons technology. The consortium has resources, information, and connections throughout known space. We believe we can help each other." The minister activated a holographic display that showed trade routes between star systems. The Vorthak hegemony controlled 17 worlds and their surrounding space lanes. With their fleet destroyed, those territories are now open for new management. The consortium would like to propose joint development of those systems with human military protection and consortium economic expertise. Chen studied the display. The proposed territories included some of the richest mining systems and most strategic hyperspace routes in this part of the galaxy. The offer was incredibly generous. What does the consortium want in return? Nothing unreasonable. We understand that your weapons technology must remain secret for obvious security reasons, but we would appreciate occasional demonstrations of human military capability to discourage other aggressive species from threatening consortium operations. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "You want us to be your enforcers." Trade Minister Veltar's expression remained neutral. "We prefer the term security partners. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Captain Chen. Species like the Vorthak emerge regularly, claiming territory and destroying civilizations. The consortium maintains peace through economic incentives and diplomatic pressure, but sometimes more direct measures are necessary." Chen thought about the offer. Humanity had always planned to expand into space gradually, establishing new colonies and building up their defensive capabilities over decades. The consortium was offering a chance to accelerate that timeline dramatically. "I'll need to consult with my government before making any commitments," Chen said finally. "Of course. But Captain, you should know that similar offers are being prepared for presentation to several other species that have recently demonstrated impressive military capabilities. The consortium values exclusive partnerships." The meeting ended with polite formalities, but Chen understood the underlying message. Humanity could join the galactic community as a major power, or they could remain isolated while other species took advantage of the opportunities the package had created. That evening, Chen stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, looking down at the colony world that had started this whole conflict. The lights of human cities twinkled across the night side of the planet, peaceful and secure now that the Vorthak threat had ended. But Chen knew this was only the beginning. Word of humanity's victory was spreading across the galaxy, carrying both opportunity and danger. Some species would want to be friends, others would want to be. The stars looked different when Commander Vexhai saw them through the bridge of his scout ship. Each point of light represented another world the Zephyrian hegemony could claim. For 300 years, his people had spread across the galaxy like a slow tide. They found primitive worlds, took what they needed, and moved on. It was simple work. "Commander, we have found something," his navigator called out. The young officer's voice carried excitement. Finding new worlds always excited the young ones. Vexhai walked to the scanner display. The system had one star, several dead planets, and one blue-green world in the perfect zone for life. Initial scans showed water, oxygen, and the heat signatures of large cities. Another world to add to the hegemony's collection. "What do we know about them?" Vexhai asked. The science officer pulled up data on his screen. Primitive radio signals going back about 200 years. Nuclear technology, but very basic. No space infrastructure we can detect. Population estimates suggest around 8 billion individuals. Vexhai nodded. It was always the same story. Young species that barely understood fire compared to hegemony. Technology. Their plasma cannons could level mountains. Their shields could stop anything these primitives might throw at them. The hegemony's smallest warship carried more firepower than most species could build in a lifetime. "Open communication channels," Vexhai ordered, "all frequencies." The communication officer worked at his console. "Channels open, Commander." Vexhai straightened his uniform. This was ceremony now, a tradition that went back generations. Primitive. Species of the third planet. This is Commander Vexhai of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your world has been selected for resource extraction and population management. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender completely. Any resistance will result in complete elimination. This is your only warning. He cut the transmission and settled back in his command chair. Now came the waiting. Some species begged, others tried to bargain. A few attempted to hide. None had ever said no. 6 hours passed before the response came. It arrived on every frequency at once, broadcast with surprising technical skill. The voice was calm, speaking the common galactic language with a strange accent. This is President Martinez of the United Earth Federation. We have received your ultimatum. Our answer is no. Vexhai blinked. His bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. No? Species didn't say no to the hegemony. They surrendered or they died. There was no third option. Sir, the communication officer said carefully. Perhaps they did not understand the message? Vexhai thought for a moment. Sometimes primitive species needed a demonstration. He had done this before. A show of power usually convinced them to be reasonable. Target the large desert area on their main continent, he ordered. Fire one plasma cannon. Low power, just enough to turn sand into glass. The weapons officer targeted the Sahara Desert. The plasma beam lanced down from orbit, superheating an area 50 kilometers across. Sand became glass in seconds. The energy release was visible from space as a bright flash. Open channels again, Vexhai said. This is Commander Vexhai. You have seen our power. We have many ships with many weapons. Surrender now, or we will. Target your cities next. The response came faster this time, the same voice still calm. This is President Martinez. We have seen your demonstration. Our answer remains no. Now Vexhai was angry. These primitives were being deliberately stupid. He had been merciful, giving them a chance. But mercy had limits. All ships, target the largest population centers, he commanded. His small scout fleet had 12 vessels. Each could level a city. Prepare to fire on my command. The weapons powered up. Plasma cannons locked onto targets around the primitive world. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Mumbai, São Paulo. 6 cities, 6 examples. After this, surely they would surrender. Fire. The Phi? Plasma beams lanced downward toward Earth. They should have struck in seconds, turning cities into vapor. Instead, something impossible happened. The beams stopped, not reflected, not absorbed. They simply stopped, as if hitting an invisible wall in space. Energy that should have destroyed cities dissipated harmlessly into space. What just happened? Vexhai demanded. Unknown, sir, the weapons officer stammered. Our weapons fired correctly, but something intercepted them. Sir, the scanner officer called out. I'm detecting massive energy spikes from the planet's surface. Something is launching. Vexhai looked at the display and felt his blood turn cold. Hundreds of objects were rising from Earth's surface. They moved wrong. Nothing should accelerate that fast without being crushed by its own speed. The primitive planet had no right to build anything that moved like that. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted. Too late. The first projectile hit the ship, Proud Conqueror. It didn't explode. It didn't need to. Moving at 30% of light speed, it punched through the ship's shields like they weren't there. The Proud Conqueror simply came apart, its hull unable to contain the energy transfer. More projectiles followed. They moved with impossible precision, each one finding its target. The swift strike tried to jump to hyperspace. The projectile caught it anyway, somehow tracking through dimensions that should have been impossible for primitives to understand. Sir, we need to retreat, his navigator screamed. Vexhai watched 5 more of his ships die in seconds. These weren't primitive weapons. These were weapons that belonged to species far more advanced than his own. But the scans had been clear. Earth showed no signs of advanced technology. All remaining ships emergency jumped to hyperspace now. 3 ships managed to escape. 9 died in the first minute of combat against a species that shouldn't have been able to build faster-than-light communication, let alone weapons that could track through hyperspace. As his ship fled through the dimensional tunnel of hyperspace, HFY tried to understand what had happened. Earth had hidden its true capabilities, but why and how? Species didn't develop technology in secret. They showed off their achievements, built monuments to their engineering. Humans were different. And yet, hyperspace jump ended at the nearest hegemony outpost. HFY's communications officer was already sending emergency signals to Fleet Command. This was no longer a simple conquest mission. This was first contact with a species that had just announced itself to the galaxy with violence. Admiral Kethron's face appeared on the communication screen. "Commander HFY, report your status." "Sir, we have encountered significant resistance. The species appears to have hidden advanced military capabilities. We lost 9 ships in the first engagement." The Admiral's expression didn't change. In 3 centuries of expansion, the hegemony had rarely lost even 1 ship to primitive species. "Explain." HFY told him everything. The strange projectiles, the impossible speeds, the tracking through hyperspace. As he spoke, he watched the Admiral's face grow darker. "And you're certain these readings are accurate?" "Yes, sir. Whatever they hit us with was moving at significant fractions of light speed. Our shields might as well have been decorative." "Admiral," Kethron was quiet for a long moment. "Commander, you are to remain at the outpost until further orders. I will be mobilizing the 47th Conquest Fleet." The transmission ended. HFY slumped in his command chair. The 47th Conquest Fleet was 300 ships. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust if needed. Surely that would be enough to handle whatever tricks the humans had hidden. But as he looked at the damage reports from his surviving ships, HFY felt something he had never experienced in his military career: doubt. For the first time in hegemony history, they had attacked first and been hurt in return. The humans had been waiting for them. The question that terrified him was simple: what else were they hiding? Admiral Kethron had conquered 47 worlds in his career. Each time the pattern was the same. The hegemony fleet would arrive, the primitive species would see their superior technology, and surrender would follow within days. The 47th Conquest Fleet had never failed to bring a world into hegemony control. 3 months after Commander HFY's disastrous first contact with Earth, Admiral Kethron sat in his flagship Eternal Dominion, leading 300 of the hegemony's finest warships toward the Sol system. Intelligence reports suggested that Earth's defenses were limited to whatever had destroyed HFY's scouts. The planet itself showed no orbital defenses or space-based military installations. The reports were wrong. "Admiral," called his scanner. "Officer, we are detecting unusual readings from the outer planet with the ring system." Kethron moved to the scanner display. Saturn looked normal at first glance, a gas giant with beautiful rings of ice and rock. But as their sensors focused, something was wrong with the rings. "Sir, the ice chunks are showing power signatures." Before Kethron could respond, the rings lit up. Thousands of objects that had looked like harmless ice began moving with purpose. They weren't ice chunks. They were weapons platforms disguised and waiting. The first wave of projectiles came from everywhere at once. They moved at impossible speeds, just like the weapons that had destroyed HFY's fleet. The hegemony ship's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before the relativistic kill vehicles punched through them. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kethron commanded. "Return fire on the ring system." His ships spread out and began firing their plasma cannons at Saturn's rings. The beams hit their targets, turning some of the disguised platforms into vapor. But for every platform they destroyed, 10 more revealed themselves. The humans had turned an entire planetary ring system into a weapons grid. In the first 10 minutes of battle, Kethron lost 60 ships. "Sir," his communication officer called out, "we're receiving multiple signals from the gas giant with the large moons." Jupiter appeared on the main screen. Its 4 largest moons were moving, not orbiting, moving with intent and direction. As the hegemony fleet watched in horror, the moons began to open like flowers, revealing that they weren't moons at all. They were shipyards, massive construction facilities that had been disguised to look like natural satellites. And they were launching ships, Human vessels poured out of the fake moons by the hundreds. They looked nothing like proper warships. Where hegemony vessels were sleek and elegant, human ships were blocky and crude. They had too many weapon mounts, too much armor, and designs that hurt to look at. They looked like someone had taken spare parts and welded them together without caring about appearance. But they moved fast, and they carried enough firepower to light up scanner displays with warning signals. "Sir, those human ships are reading power levels beyond anything in our database," the scanner officer reported, his voice shaking. The first wave of human ships hit the hegemony fleet like a hammer. Their weapons were impossible. Kinetic rounds that moved at speeds that should have torn the ships apart from recoil. Energy beams that cut through hegemony shields like cutting paper. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves, dodging defensive fire and finding weak spots in ship armor. But the worst part was how the humans fought. A hegemony destroyer found itself being rammed by a human ship half its size. The human vessel's crew had apparently decided that the fastest way to disable the destroyer was to crash into it at full speed. Both ships were destroyed, but the human crew had been singing something during the collision. Their radio channels carried what sounded like battle songs. Another human ship lost its main engines and began spinning out of control. Instead of retreating or calling for help, the crew overloaded their reactor and steered the spinning wreck into a hegemony cruiser. The explosion took out both vessels and damaged 2 more ships nearby. "They're insane," whispered Kethran's tactical officer. "They're using their own ships as weapons." It got worse. Human boarding parties launched themselves through space in simple pressure suits carrying primitive chemical projectile weapons. These crude guns somehow penetrated hegemony personal shields and armor. The boarding parties fought like demons, taking impossible risks and showing no fear of death. On the cruiser, Pride of Zephyr, human boarders had somehow gotten control of the ship's main weapon systems. The cruiser began firing on other hegemony vessels while its own crew tried to regain control. The battle ended when the human boarders overloaded the ship's power core rather than surrender. Admiral Kethran watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like the laws of physics were suggestions, and death was an acceptable tactical option. His ships were better designed, his crews better trained, his weapons more advanced. But the humans didn't seem to care about any of that. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting something," his communication officer reported. "Put it through." A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented but clear galactic standard. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You came to our system looking for a fight. How are you enjoying it so far?" Kethran opened his own communication channel. "This is Admiral Kethran of the Hegemony 47th Conquest Fleet. Your tactics are barbaric. No civilized species fights this way." "Civilized?" the human admiral laughed. "You came here to destroy our cities and enslave our people. You call that civilized? We call it Tuesday." Another wave of human ships emerged from behind Jupiter's real moons. These ships were even larger than the first wave, with weapon arrays that made Kethran's flagship look lightly armed. "You have superior numbers," Kethran said, trying to maintain some dignity. "This proves nothing about your military capability." "Numbers?" Admiral Chen sounded amused. "Oh, you think this is our main fleet? How adorable. This is just the local defense force. Would you like to see what happens when we get serious?" On the scanner display, new signals appeared throughout the system. Ships were emerging from hiding places that shouldn't have been able to hide anything. Asteroid fields revealed themselves as camouflaged bases. Space that had appeared empty suddenly filled with human vessels. Kethran realized with growing horror that the entire solar system was a trap. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid had been turned into part of a massive defensive network. The humans hadn't just been hiding their capabilities. They had been planning this battle for months. "Sir," his scanner officer called out, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the inner planets as well." Mars was opening up like a mechanical flower. The entire planet's surface was sliding apart to reveal shipyards that dwarfed anything the hegemony had ever built. Venus was doing something similar, its thick atmosphere parting to show massive railgun installations pointed directly at the hegemony fleet. "Retreat," Kethran whispered. "Sir?" Retreat, he screamed. All ships, emergency hyperspace jump. Get us out of here. As his remaining ships began powering up their hyperspace drives, Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication channels one last time. Running away so soon? And here we were just getting warmed up. Tell your leaders that Earth remembers who fired the first shot. We'll be in touch. 67 ships managed to escape out of the 300 that had entered the Sol system. As Kethran's flagship fled through hyperspace, he tried to process what he had seen. The humans didn't just have hidden military technology, they had turned their entire star system into a weapon. But the thing that terrified him most was Admiral Chen's final words. The humans weren't done. They were coming for the hegemony next. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kethran sent an emergency signal to the High Council with a single word: help. The Hegemony High Council chamber had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. Today, it witnessed something new: fear. Supreme Chancellor Morden stood before the holographic display showing the remains of Admiral Kethran's fleet. 67 ships, out of 300. The 47th Conquest Fleet had been the pride of the Hegemony military, equipped with weapons that could shatter moons and shields that had never failed in battle. The humans had destroyed them like they were training targets. Explain this, Chancellor Morden said to Chief Military Advisor Zentoth. Zentoth's scaled hide had lost its usual proud coloring. Supreme Chancellor, our initial intelligence was completely wrong. The humans were not primitive. They have been spacefaring for far longer than we detected. Their technology is not just advanced, it is beyond our current understanding. The holographic display changed to show the battle recordings from Admiral Kethran's ships. The Council watched in silence as human vessels performed impossible maneuvers, used tactics that violated everything they knew about space combat, and displayed firepower that should have required ships 10 times their size. How long have they been hiding this? Asked Councillor Vextha. Unknown. Our analysis suggests at least several centuries. The radio signals we detected were not their first transmissions. They were deliberately designed to make us think they were primitive. Chancellor Morden felt something cold in his stomach. You mean they wanted us to attack them? It appears so, Supreme Chancellor. They were ready for us. Not just ready. They were waiting. The display showed new intelligence. Data. Spy drones sent to the edges of human space had detected something that made no sense. Human ships were everywhere, not just in the Sol system, but in dozens of star systems. Their space infrastructure was massive, hidden by stealth technology. That made hegemony sensors useless. How many systems do they control? Chancellor Morden asked. Zentoth manipulated the display. Red dots appeared across a section of the galaxy. Our best estimate is 47 star systems, possibly more. Their population appears to be in the hundreds of billions. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Hundreds of billions? The entire hegemony controlled 60 systems with a total population of only 50 billion across all species. Impossible, declared Councillor Kethran. We would have detected such expansion. No, we would not, Zentoth replied grimly. Their stealth technology is centuries ahead of our detection capabilities. They have been expanding around us, through us, past us. We never knew they were there. Chancellor Morden studied the display. The red dots showed human territory forming a rough sphere around hegemony space. They weren't just hiding their expansion. They had been surrounding the hegemony for centuries. What are their intentions? He asked. Unknown. But their military doctrine appears to be based on overwhelming response to any threat. When we attacked one of their worlds, they responded with enough firepower to sterilize our home system. The display changed again, showing technical analysis of human weapons. The numbers were terrifying. Human ships carried firepower ratings that exceeded hegemony dreadnoughts. Their smallest patrol vessels could destroy hegemony cruisers. Their industrial capacity was growing at rates that violated everything the hegemony knew about resource management and production. How is this possible? Councillor Vextha asked. No species develops this fast. Humans are not like other species, Zentoth explained. Their development pattern is completely different. Most species expand slowly. consolidating each system before moving to the next. Humans appear to expand and consolidate simultaneously. They take risks that other species would consider suicidal. And their weapons? Crude but effective. They do not care about elegant engineering. They care about results. A human ship might be ugly compared to our vessels, but it carries 3 times the firepower and uses manufacturing techniques that let them build ships faster than we thought possible. Chancellor Mordun was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. The hegemony had spent 3 centuries building a galactic empire. The humans had spent the same time building something bigger, hidden in plain sight. "What do you recommend?" he asked. "Total war protocol," Zentoth said without hesitation. "We mobilize every ship, every weapon, every resource. If we do not stop them now, they will stop us later." The entire military? That has never been necessary. Supreme Chancellor, this is not a normal conquest. This is survival. The humans have demonstrated the ability to destroy our fleets with ease. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, they will come for us. Chancellor Mordun looked around the chamber. The other counselors were nodding. Fear was making the decision for them. How many ships can we mobilize? 3,000 vessels, including the World Burner dreadnoughts. The World Burners. Ancient ships built during the hegemony's early expansion, designed to crack planets that refused to surrender. They had been used only twice in hegemony history. Both times entire civilizations had disappeared. "And you believe this will be sufficient?" Zentoth hesitated. "I believe it is our only chance. The humans have shown us mercy so far. They could have pursued our retreating fleets and destroyed them completely. They chose not to. This suggests they can be reasoned with, but only from a position of strength." Chancellor Mordun made the decision that would determine the fate of 2 civilizations. Authorize total war protocol. Mobilize every ship. If the humans want to see hegemony firepower, we will show them what 3 centuries of galactic dominance looks like. As the council dispersed to prepare for the largest military mobilization in hegemony history, none of them noticed the small device hidden in the chamber's ventilation system. A device that had been recording everything, transmitting the entire conversation to a human intelligence ship stationed 3 light-years away. On Earth, President Martinez received the transmission and smiled. The hegemony was doing exactly what human strategists had predicted they would do. Total mobilization of their forces. Every ship they had, gathered in one place, ready to be destroyed in a single decisive battle. Admiral Chen, President Martinez, said into her communication device, "Prepare Phase 3. Phase 3 confirmed, Madam President. All systems are ready." President Martinez looked out her window at the bustling streets of New Geneva. People going about their daily lives, completely unaware that the largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. A battle that would determine whether humanity continued to hide in the shadows or stepped into the light as the galaxy's new dominant power. Hegemony thought they were mobilizing to destroy Earth. They didn't realize they were mobilizing to commit suicide. Humanity had been planning this war for 400 years. Every ship the hegemony built, every weapon they developed, every tactical doctrine they created had been watched, analyzed, and countered. The trap was perfect. The hegemony was about to learn why humans had a saying: "If you're going to shoot the king, you better not miss." They had missed. Now it was humanity's turn to shoot back. The Grand Armada of the Zephyrian hegemony was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 3,000 warships, including the ancient World Burner dreadnoughts that could crack planets. Supreme Admiral Torvak commanded from the massive flagship Final Authority, a ship so large it had its own gravity generators and could carry smaller vessels in its hangar bays. As the Armada approached the Sol system, Admiral Torvak felt confident. Whatever tricks the humans had used against smaller fleets would not work against this much firepower. The World Burners alone carried enough destructive power to turn Earth into an asteroid field. "Sir, we are entering the outer system," reported his navigation officer. "Begin scanning for human vessels," Torvak ordered. "I want to know where they are hiding their fleet." The scanners swept through the system and found nothing. No ships, No defensive platforms, no energy signatures. Even Earth itself appeared dark, its cities showing no power, its orbital installations silent. "Sir, the system appears to be empty," the scanner officer reported. Admiral Torvak frowned. This felt wrong. The humans had shown they were clever fighters. They would not simply abandon their home system without a fight. Keep scanning. They are here somewhere. The Armada moved deeper into the system, weapons charged and shields at maximum power. Past Neptune, past Uranus, past Saturn with its suspiciously quiet rings. Nothing moved. Nothing responded to their challenges. The silence was beginning to make the crew nervous. "Admiral," called the communication officer, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth. Put it through." The main screen lit up with the image of a human in military uniform. The name tag read, Admiral Chen, the same human who had destroyed the 47th Conquest Fleet. "Greetings, Admiral Torvak," Chen said with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Welcome to the Sol system. I am Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I assume you're here to finish what your friend started?" "I am Admiral Torvak of the Grand Armada. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy your planet." Admiral Chen laughed. "Destroy our planet? With what? Those old ships you brought? Admiral, you have no idea what you've walked into." "We have 3,000 vessels," Torvak said coldly. "Your system appears to be defended by nothing." "Appearances can be deceiving," Chen replied. "Tell me, Admiral, what do you know about human military doctrine? I know you use crude weapons and barbaric tactics. We use whatever works, and what works against the hegemony is simple. Overwhelming, disproportionate response. You wanted to see human firepower? Let me show you what we've been hiding for 4 centuries. The transmission cut off and Admiral Torvak felt the first touch of doubt. Then his scanner officer screamed, "Sir, massive energy spike from the first planet. Mercury, the small planet closest to the sun, suddenly blazed with power. The entire world was moving, revealing itself to be something impossible. The planet wasn't a planet at all. It was a weapon." "Mass driver signatures," the scanner officer yelled. "The entire planet is a mass driver." Mercury began launching projectiles at 15% of light speed, not dozens of projectiles, thousands. The entire planet had been converted into a solar-powered railgun that could fire continuously for years. "Evasive maneuvers," Torvak commanded. "But you cannot evade 15% of light speed when you are already in the weapons range." The first wave of projectiles hit the Armada like a metal rain. Hegemony shields, designed to stop plasma and energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. 30 ships died in the first minute. "Return fire on the planet," Torvak ordered. His ships launched their plasma cannons at Mercury, but the planet's surface was protected by shields that made the projectiles harmless. Worse, Mercury was accelerating the planet's spin, launching projectiles from all directions as it rotated. "Sir," the scanner officer called again, "the second planet is powering up." Venus revealed its secret as its thick atmosphere parted like curtains. The planet's surface was covered with railgun installations the size of continents. Each installation was larger than some of the ships in Torvak's fleet, and there were hundreds of them. Venus opened fire. The railgun rounds from Venus were larger than Mercury's projectiles, moving at similar speeds but designed to penetrate multiple targets. One round punched through 3 hegemony destroyers in a perfect line, the kinetic energy so massive that the ship simply disintegrated. "This is impossible," Torvak shouted. "No species converts entire planets into weapons." His communication officer looked terrified. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Admiral Chen." Chen's face appeared on screen again, still smiling. "How are you enjoying the demonstration, Admiral? This is just our inner system defenses. Mercury and Venus are what we call crowd control. Would you like to see what Mars can do?" As if triggered by his words, Mars began to change. The red planet's surface split apart along massive seams, revealing that the entire planet was hollow. Inside was the largest shipyard Torvak had ever seen, and it was launching vessels at an impossible rate. Ships poured out of Mars like insects from a disturbed nest. Hundreds, then thousands. They were the same ugly, overarmed human vessels that had destroyed the previous fleets, but there were so many of them that they darkened space. "Sir, I'm reading over 5,000 human ships launching from the fourth planet," the scanner officer reported, his voice breaking. "And more launching from hidden bases throughout the system." Admiral Torvak realized he had made a terrible mistake. The humans hadn't abandoned the system. They had turned the entire system into a kill box. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid had been weaponized. His armada wasn't attacking Earth. It was trapped inside the largest weapon ever. "Built! All ships, emergency retreat," he commanded. "Jump to hyperspace immediately." "Sir, we cannot," the navigation officer reported. "They are jamming our hyperspace drive somehow." On screen, Admiral Chen was still smiling. "Leaving so soon? But we haven't even started the main event yet. Computer, begin Phase 4. New contacts," appeared on the scanner display. Ships emerging from hidden bases in the asteroid belt. Ships rising from beneath the surfaces of moons. Ships that had been hiding in the shadows of planets, invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. The human fleet wasn't just large, it was impossibly large. Torvak's 3,000 ships were outnumbered 10-1, and the humans were still launching more vessels. "How many ships do they have?" he whispered. "Sir, I count over 40,000 human vessels, and the number is still climbing," the scanner officer replied. 40,000 ships. The entire hegemony military was only 8,000 vessels total, and most of those were scattered across 60 star systems. The humans had built a fleet larger than the entire hegemony navy just to defend one system. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 6 hours. The hegemony's ancient world-burner dreadnoughts, ships that had never been defeated in battle, were overwhelmed by swarms of human vessels. The humans didn't fight fair. They attacked in groups using coordinated strikes that focused overwhelming firepower on single targets. When a hegemony ship's shields failed, human boarding parties would swarm aboard. When the crew tried to surrender, the humans would capture the ship intact and turn its weapons on other hegemony vessels. It was humiliating. Admiral Torvak watched his grand armada dissolve around him. The humans weren't just winning. They were playing with their prey, testing new weapons and tactics on hegemony ships like they were training exercises. "Sir," his communication officer said quietly, "Admiral Chen is requesting surrender." Torvak looked at his tactical display. Of 3,000 ships, fewer than 200 remained. His flagship was surrounded by human vessels, any one of which could destroy it with ease. "Open the channel," he said. Admiral Chen appeared on screen one last time. "Admiral Torvak, this is your last chance to surrender. We have no interest in slaughtering your crews, but we will if you make it necessary. You have won," Torvak said, the words tasting like poison. "I surrender the Grand Armada." "Smart choice. My people will board your remaining ships to ensure compliance." "Oh, and Admiral? Tell your High Council that this was just our local defense force. If they want to see what happens when we get serious, they can try attacking us again." As human Marines boarded his flagship, Admiral Torvak realized the most terrifying truth of all. The humans had been holding back. This overwhelming display of power was them being merciful. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, a single human ship arrived at Zephyr Prime, the hegemony homeworld. The vessel was massive, dwarfing even the largest hegemony dreadnoughts, but it made no threatening moves. It simply took position in orbit and sent a single message: "We request permission to negotiate." The hegemony High Council had been in emergency session for months. The Grand Armada's destruction had left them defenseless. Worse, the human prisoners they had taken spoke freely about their civilization. The numbers they shared were impossible to believe, but the evidence was undeniable. Humanity controlled over 400 star systems. Their population was nearly 1 trillion individuals. They had been spacefaring for 8 centuries, not 2. Everything the hegemony thought they knew about humans was wrong. Supreme Chancellor Morden sat in the council chamber, looking older than his centuries. Before him stood the surviving members of the High Council and their newest advisor, Admiral Torvak, recently returned from human captivity. "Tell us again about their ship," Chancellor Mordun said. Admiral Torvak's voice was hollow. "It is called the Speak Softly. The humans say it is a diplomatic vessel. My instruments cannot calculate its weapons capacity without overloading." "A diplomatic vessel?" "The humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. This ship is their big stick." Through the chamber's great windows, they could see the human ship hanging in space like a small moon. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, its hull covered in weapons that could destroy continents. "What do they want?" asked Councillor Vextha. "To talk," Torvak replied. "But on their terms. They want the negotiations held aboard their ship." Chancellor Mordun felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries. Now they were about to surrender to a species they had tried to enslave. "Very well. Signal the humans. We will negotiate." 2 hours later, Chancellor Mordun and the surviving council members were transported to the human ship. The shuttle bay that received them was larger than most hegemony vessels. Human marines in power armor provided escort, their weapons clearly visible but not threatening. The corridors of the Speak Softly were like nothing the hegemony leaders had ever seen. Clean white walls lined with displays showing star charts of human territory. The scale was staggering. Red dots representing human colonies filled sections of the galaxy the hegemony had thought were empty. They were led to a conference room where a human woman waited. She was young by galactic standards, perhaps 40 Earth years, with graying hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. "Chancellor Mordun," she said, standing and offering a formal bow. "I am Ambassador Sarah Chen. Thank you for coming." "Chen?" Chancellor Mordun asked. "Related to your Admiral Chen?" "My daughter," Ambassador Chen replied with pride. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." The negotiation table was simple, with chairs sized for both human and hegemony physiology. On the table were documents written in both languages and a holographic display showing the current galactic situation. "Before we begin," Ambassador Chen said, "I want to be clear about something. Humanity did not start this war. You attacked our world. You attempted to destroy our cities and enslave our people. Everything that followed was self-defense." "Chancellor." Mordun nodded. "We understand this. We miscalculated." "You did more than miscalculate. You revealed yourselves as the kind of species that attacks first and asks questions later. But that's not why we're here." Ambassador Chen manipulated the holographic display. It showed human territory in blue and hegemony territory in red. The blue zones completely surrounded the red ones. For 4 centuries, humanity has been watching galactic civilization. We've seen what the hegemony does to species that resist. We've recorded every conquest, every atrocity, every world that burned. Because it refused to surrender, the display changed, showing system after system where the hegemony had used overwhelming force against civilian populations. Worlds stripped of resources, populations enslaved or eliminated, entire species driven to extinction. "We didn't attack Earth to defend ourselves," Ambassador Chen continued. "We attacked because we decided you had been in charge long enough." Chancellor Mordun felt cold understanding creep through his mind. "You were waiting for an excuse. We were waiting for justification. There's a difference. Humanity doesn't start wars, Chancellor, but we finish them." The display showed new information. Human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy, ready to move at a moment's notice. Not just defense fleets, invasion forces. "What are your terms?" Chancellor Mordun asked, dreading the answer. Ambassador Chen smiled, and for the first time it was warm instead of threatening. "That's the beautiful thing, Chancellor. We don't want to conquer the hegemony, we want to replace it." She gestured to the display again. New information appeared, showing a complex network of species and civilizations. "The Galactic Defense Compact," she explained. "A voluntary alliance of civilized worlds dedicated to mutual protection and cooperation. No conquests, no forced surrenders, no species enslaved for refusing to comply with ultimatums." And if we refuse to join, then you become the Compact's first target. We have 47 member species already signed up. Species that the hegemony conquered or threatened. They're very eager to see justice done. Chancellor Morden looked at the list of member species. It included every civilization the hegemony had subjugated in the past 2 centuries. They had all been waiting, building strength, preparing for this moment. This was planned, he realized. For over a century, Ambassador Chen confirmed. Did you think you could rule the galaxy through fear forever? Every species you conquered, every world you burned, every population you enslaved created enemies. We just gave them hope and coordination. The terms of the Galactic Defense Compact were surprisingly reasonable. Hegemony territory would be divided among member species, with Zephyrians keeping their homeworld and immediate system. War criminals would face trial, but regular citizens would be protected. The hegemony military would be disbanded, but Zephyrians could serve in the Compact fleet. Why are you being merciful? Chancellor Morden asked. Because mercy is strength, Ambassador Chen replied. The hegemony ruled through fear. The Compact will succeed through cooperation. We want Zephyrians to choose to be part of something better, not be forced into it. Chancellor Morden looked around the conference table at his fellow counselors. They were defeated, broken, facing the end of everything they had built. But the alternative was extinction. If we sign this compact, he said slowly, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't become the new hegemony? Ambassador Chen leaned back in her chair. Because, Chancellor, humanity has been the dominant power in this galaxy for 2 centuries. If we wanted to rule through conquest, we would have done it already. We prefer to rule through example. The signing ceremony took place 3 days later, broadcast throughout the galaxy. Chancellor Morden affixed his seal to the Galactic Defense Compact, while Ambassador Chen watched. As he signed, he realized that history would remember him as the leader who surrendered the hegemony. But as he looked at the terms of the compact, at the protections for civilian populations, and the restrictions on military action, he began to think that history might judge him more kindly than he expected. The compact's first action was to send aid fleets to former hegemony worlds, offering medical supplies, food, and reconstruction assistance. No payment was required. No loyalty was demanded. It was help offered freely to species that had suffered under hegemony rule. As the human fleet departed Zephyr Prime, Chancellor Morden stood in his office watching the stars. For the first time in decades, he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. The galaxy was entering a new age, an age where conflicts would be resolved through negotiation instead of conquest, where species would cooperate instead of competing, where bullies would face the united response of civilized worlds. And watching over it all, patient and powerful, humanity would ensure that the strong protected the weak, instead of preying on them. The hegemony had attacked first. Earth had answered, with firepower they couldn't imagine. But more importantly, humanity had answered with something the galaxy had never seen before: mercy backed by overwhelming strength. It was the beginning of peace.